I understand that grammar can be scary and boring. And although I'm going to talk about grammar on a positive side in this video, the objective here is not to try to convince you to like grammar, even less to study it in a normative way. Normative grammar is a linguistic term for a set of rules determined for a determined language. There is also traditional grammar, narrative grammar, generative grammar, and many more. You are probably surprised, and I like that surprise a lot because it tells so much about our society. In other videos, I talk about how education has a very tough time being effective and how deeply flawed it is. Our perception of reality is masked by layers and layers. But don't worry, it isn't your fault, and I was a victim of this as well, as many people still suffer from this. But don't worry, after this video, you will fully comprehend what I meant by that. It is normal and expected that we view grammar as an unchangeable thing, a solid set of rules that we can trust and convey as what should be proper language. This is because of how our society and education about language developed. And interestingly enough, and although we always had linguistics studies in the past, they were many, and only in modern times that linguistics became strong enough as a science. So the reason we only see grammar as this heavy load of rules and irregularities is that those notions of what is an effective way and what isn't in language learning are still fairly new. And this one was made possible granted by the internet. If you ask yourself why we teach the way why they teach the way they do, that is having mostly grammar classes in schools and whatnot, is basically of how the language studies evolve. Take oral cultures, for example. How do they keep track of spoken language? How do they know how to reproduce the sound of it if they don't have a graphic symbol to represent them? We can think about many things that not having a writing system can bring to a language, but that's mostly a false perception than anything. Oral cultures still exist today, and not having a writing system doesn't mean not having language patterns and what is accepted as rules. The reason for that is because, in essence, language is a way to interact with reality, to describe the life and act on it. And there are many, many ways how to interact with reality. We can speak with it, we can write it, we can impose rules and whatnot. The thing with that most people understand of grammar is that is was the most popular and effective way to summarize what reality to that language carried. So for example, if I don't have a way to bring that notion, that culture, that sound of the language of those people to the place that I'm at, that is another country, how can I do that? This grammar was born in sort of that sense that we could get a summarized experience of what language is. So it is by those rules or guides, paths, that I like to view them as guides and paths, that we can have a glimpse of what that language represents, a way to organize and describe reality that most people can agree as common sense. But still, at the end of the day, it's still common sense. And if people stopped believing in grammar, suddenly it would also lose all meaning. Grammar is more servant to us than the contrary. I have other videos about how language interacts with reality and how the mind works, so check that out if you're interested. But I can't extend too much in that subject for now. So the point is, that this notion of grammar is harmful in many ways. And this now trending notion that we don't need grammar to learn a language isn't a coincidence. It all has a reason. Since we use language as a way to describe reality and to understand it, if you remember, I mentioned that there are many types of grammar, and this is where it shines. The other types of grammar are essentially other ways we can interpret reality in language. So when those polyglots say that you don't need grammar to speak a language, what they are trying to say is that there's so much more to language than grammar. There are so many ways you can understand and comprehend reality than the summarized limited version of a normative approach. That is, instead of focusing to be right grammarly, you'd be better suited trying to be right intentionally, giving more attention to what these rules are trying to represent rather than just a set of rules. This is the positive side of grammar I mentioned. With those rules, if you take them with a grain of salt, you will see that they are basically a manual on how to describe reality precisely. Remember, you don't need 100% precision to make your message understandable. Probably a little more than half is enough. Having said that, try to see grammar subjects as how you can describe emotion and movement better, how you can describe emotions, situations, scenes, and size of places. That means studying grammar as a way to enhance the reality you can describe in a language, where, rather than memorizing patterns, rules, and exceptions. I wish I could bring more practical examples to enhance this perspective, but that would require too much research and material that I don't have right now. So I'll probably make this subject a major thing in the future though. Thank you for watching. More videos about the mind and linguistics in the playlists.